one with no hose. Where are you?
I'll take it from here. We're actually fixing up our old e-bikes.
As you can see, this bad boy is going to require some cable management, as well as some newer and stronger battery connectors.
Unfortunately, the old ECA connectors were not nearly strong enough to handle the beatings that I put this bike through, which is why I opted in for these stronger and more heat-resistant quick connectors to do the dirty work. Now, of course, the best place to start is by removing all of the electronics on the inside of the frame. I've done this a million times, and it's really not as complicated as it seems. And once you've done that, you're left with some connections hanging through the frame. Now, I'd like to note that I am pretty inexperienced with soldering on my own battery connectors, so I really don't expect this to be a very smooth operation, but because I would like to ride my bike tomorrow, I'm going to try to get this done tonight anyways. Now, on a quick side note, don't forget to press that like button, leave a nice comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe so I can continue to make more great videos like this, and let's get right back into it. You really don't need a whole lot to do this. All you really need is your connectors, your solder, your flux paste, and of course your soldering iron. First things first, we're going to cut off the old connector and throw it away. There's really no point in keeping this. Then, as you can see, I strip all the ends of the wires off. Now, in case you're wondering, this is not an instructional video on how to solder connectors onto your battery, as I'm not really that good at it in the first place. This is really just an intro to a longer video about my bike in general. Alright, so it's not bad, it's straight, but we do have a good amount of stray hairs there. It actually only ended up taking me about 45 minutes to solder both connectors on. Here's me soldering one of the connectors onto the battery. Of course, you gotta be really careful not to touch those two battery terminals together, but as long as you don't do that, it's smooth sailing and you'll have them working in no time. Okay, so now for the moment of truth, see if my newly soldered plugs work. So let's check it out. Wow. Alright guys, so we're looking good, everything's in place. I did say I was going to manage the cables, but to be honest, for now, I just want to get on this thing and ride it. So let's do it. Alright fellas, so it has been a few months since that last segment and I'm finally ready to ride this bike. But wait a minute, why has it been a few months? So the main reason is because there was a dent in my rear wheel's rim, which, although I was riding on for the last few months previous to that video, it started to get worse to a point where I felt as if I was to ride on it anymore, it would start bending in so much that it would just make this bike unrideable. So I didn't touch this bike for a few months. I was going into sort of a busier time with school, sports, and like Boy Scout stuff, right? But anyways, I eventually attempted to fix it. So again, I was like, there's no way I'm going to ride this on this dent. It is just too much, and every time I rode it, it would bump up and down, and I just felt really uneasy on it. So I ended up taking it over to my boy Sheldon's place. He's a welder, he has all the tools in the world, and what we decided to do was blowtorch it and hammer it until we could get that dent back into place. Now this entire process ended up taking me about 20 minutes to complete, or shall I say me and Sheldon 20 minutes to complete, because he basically did all the work. Now you might be wondering, did this work out? Now stick around to the end of the video to find out. Also, just a quick reminder, if you're not subscribed already, make sure to go ahead and do that because I'm going to be posting a lot more awesome content like this in the future. Anyways, we ended up topping it off with some sanding and some spray paint. Finally, here's Sheldon's dog. Not much going on behind those eyes, just like me. So you might be asking yourself, how well did this end up working out for me? Well, it fixed it, but it also ended up creating a new problem for me. Let me show you. Alright guys, so it has been a minute since I've been able to consistently ride this bike. I think it's been about a month since I finished the last little upgrade to this thing, which if you saw my last video, I added a cooling fan, which is able to be turned on by a switch. I don't know if you can hear it in there with all the wind noise and everything, but that's cool. But yeah, this thing is finally working, and as I mentioned previously, yes, I did fix that dent, but now there's a new issue. So because of all of the warping that was caused by the blowtorch on this thing's rim, the rim actually ended up sort of bending to the side a little bit, which isn't really a good thing, right? Let's say I was to hop on this bike, right, and I didn't know that that happened, I probably wouldn't really notice too much, but because like I know that it happened and I actually saw the rim kind of warped, it definitely bugs me a little bit, right? And once you start to get in that like 45, 50 mile per hour range, the bike sort of starts to shake more than it normally would, and I know it's because of that bent rim, right? So I actually had this issue before with my old Sur-On where the rim was bent, and I noticed with the Sur-On, it was only when I go really slow where I'd actually notice that the rim was bent. Like if I was going 3 miles per hour with it, it would shake, right? With this one, it's the complete opposite. When I'm going slow, I can't even tell. But as soon as I start to speed up, I start to feel it a little bit. I wasn't quite going fast enough there. I think I hit about 35. But you see what I mean, right? It's just a little bit annoying because like I want to ride this bike, but I don't want any like, I don't want there to be a catch, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like right now there's just this catch where it's like, if I go out, it just doesn't feel quite stable, right? And you know, especially on a bike that you put together yourself, you can't sort of keep that mental clarity and focus on other things, focus on the views when your bike feels like a little bit rickety, right? So I'm debating on doing two things, right? First, I might go back into Sheldon's shop and just sort of get back to hammering this thing. Just hit it with the blowtorch, maybe put on something flat so maybe I can hammer it to a position where the rim is like just perfectly straight, and then maybe I can fix it that way. What I'm afraid of is if I do that, I might end up just fucking it up worse, right? Which we don't want to do. And then the second option, which is what I don't want to do, is just buy a new rim. Rims are expensive. They're like $150, $200. Not too much on the grand scope of things, but it's still a pain in the butt, right? Because then you got to wait for it to ship, and then you got to get it re-spoked, which is not something that I really have in the bag right now. I don't really know how to like spoke, like put spokes on and stuff, right? So, you know, that's pretty lame. But yeah, that's sort of the issue that I've been having with this bike just currently. It's just been this rim. And it's not like this was a new sort of motor or rim when I got this bike. I actually ended up taking the new motor off of my bike and giving it to somebody else because I messed something up on their bike, right, when I was building it for them. Anyways, that's an old story. But I ended up finding a really good deal for a used motor. So this random guy came up to me, right? It was about 1.5 years ago. I was like, hey, nice bike, dude. You know, I actually have a bike sort of like that, right? And he's like, oh, that's sick. And I'm like, the only problem is I'm not riding it because I need a new motor. And he's like, oh, well, actually, I have a motor which I'm selling, right? And I'll sell it to you for like $250. So I got this motor, which I'm currently using for like $250, which is an absolute steal, right? Because normally they go for like $700 with the rim and everything. But what ended up happening is the tire popped and I had to ride it like a mile home, and I ended up bending the rim. And I wasn't sure if it was when I popped it or it was because I was riding it while I was on a flat. But lesson learned, don't ride your bike while you have a flat, because it's gonna mess up your rim and it's gonna mess up your day. It's gonna mess up your next few months, right? But anyways, yeah, this bike is very functional right now, other than that annoyingly bent rim. Here we go, we have a private road here. I'm an employee. Oh man, that's a nice little house. I'm gonna turn around here. That security guard looks very scary. Gosh, I want to say it's not that bad. Like, it's noticeable when I think about it, right? Because I'm always thinking about it. But it's not the end of the world. Anyways, back to my crib with this one. So to sum it up, there's basically 3 things we can do with this rim. Either we can just sort of thug it out and keep the rim how it is and just sort of ride it like this, or we can take it down to Sheldon's, try to get this fixed with the possibility of making it worse, or we can just end up buying a new rim. In my opinion, I think we can sort of do this in an order, right? First, we thug it out long enough until we're like, all right, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Take it down to Sheldon's, see if we can make it better. And then if we don't and we ended up messing it up, we'll just buy a new rim, get this thing re-spoked and ready to ride, because I'm tired of dealing with this bent ass rim. Anyways guys, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed this little saga, make sure to go ahead, hit that thumbs up, leave a nice comment down below, most importantly subscribe so I can continue to make more great videos like this. I'm looking to do an update on the battery in my bike, to maybe like a little range test, see how well these Chinese batteries last. So make sure to stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys soon in the next one. Later.